What's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Playthrough. I'm going to go over the entirety of the Mortal Kombat video games. Actually, not really the entirety, just the new timeline of the Mortal Kombat video games is what I'm playing through right now. And the reason behind that is because the original timeline, the original series, Mortal Kombat 1, really up until like Deadly Alliance, didn't have a story mode. Yes, you do get story elements from it, from character endings and stuff like that, but in order to play through these games, you would really have to play through and beat the game with every character, and I just don't really see how that would be comparable to some of the later games. I feel like the best way to do this is to go to the original timeline, which all three have a story mode. All three are very similar in the way that they handle their combat and everything like that, with the extras and the crypt and everything. So that's what I'm going to review now, is I'm going to review Mortal Kombat 2011, also known as Mortal Kombat 9, Mortal Kombat X, and Mortal Kombat 11. Those are the three games that I'm going to play, and then I'm going to rank them. So I remember the time after Mortal Kombat Armageddon had come out, waiting for a new next-gen Mortal Kombat game on the Xbox 360 or PS3. Both systems have been operational for a couple years, and we got Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, which was kind of a huge letdown.
Kano wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Especially for most Mortal Kombat fans, because they toned everything down, and yes, that had a story mode too. I guess I could throw that in here, but I'm not going to, because most Mortal Kombat fans don't see that as really part of the Mortal Kombat universe, because it's a side story. It has nothing to do with any of the other games. They attach non-canon storylines to characters, and it's just a mess. So I was a little disappointed when that came out. But then we got Mortal Kombat 2011, or Mortal Kombat 9, which is the first game that I'm going to start out with. So without further ado, let's jump in with Mortal Kombat 9. I remember when this game got announced and I was so excited, Mortal Kombat being one of my favorite franchises. I actually do have another channel which is all centered around Mortal Kombat. Shameless plug, MK Temple, you should check that out. So when they announced that they were rebooting the entire series with current gen graphics and that it was gonna be Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 packed into one, I was ecstatic, because this is the original. These are the games that I grew up on that they're remaking. So Mortal Kombat 9 came out and I loved it, and I hadn't really played it since, so I'm going back to see if it really does still hold up, because now it was a decade ago that this came out. So Mortal Kombat 9 was released on April 19th, 2011 on the PS3 and Xbox 360. It was directed by Ed Boon, written by John Vogel, Brian Chard, and Dominic Cianciolo. And I replayed it on the PS3. So I'm going to read the storyline from Wikipedia. Following the end of the Armageddon War, all warriors from the realms have been killed, leaving only Raiden and the Outworld Emperor Shao Kahn remaining. Before being killed by the Emperor, Raiden uses one last spell to send a message to his past self through his shattered amulet, with the vague message, he must win. During the events of the first tournament from the first game, the past Raiden sees visions from the future due to the message he received and notices his amulet had been damaged. Raiden concludes that Liu Kang must win the tournament to save Earthrealm. During the tournament, Liu Kang becomes the only remaining Earthrealm contender, due in part to Scorpion's murder of Bi-Han, better known as Sub-Zero, in retaliation for the latter's massacre of the former Shiryu clan, including Scorpion's wife and infant son some years earlier. Liu Kang is successful in defeating the Shogun Prince Goro, as well as the crafty sorcerer Shang Tsung. Raiden's amulet, however, cracks further, a sign that future events remain unchanged. Disappointed with the sorcerer's failure, Emperor Shao Kahn orders Shang Tsung's execution, but is convinced otherwise when the sorcerer suggests holding a second tournament in Outworld with different stakes. If Earthrealm wins, Outworld would leave them alone forever, but if Outworld wins, then they will be allowed to invade Earthrealm uninhibited. Though he initially refuses, Raiden relents when Tarkatans invade Earthrealm as part of Shang Tsung's blackmail against Earthrealm. During the second tournament, Bi-Han's younger brother, Kuai Liang, decides to become the new Sub-Zero, and he and his friend Smoke arrive to avenge his brother. They are followed by Lin Kuei cyber assassins Sector and Cyrax, who are tasked with retrieving the rogue warriors for cybernetic conversion. Raiden changes the timeline by rescuing Smoke from being converted, at the cost of Kuai Liang being taken away. Kitana, the adopted daughter of Shao Kahn, chooses to join Earthrealm's fight after learning of the existence of her half-Tarkatan clone Mileena, created by Shang Tsung on Shao Kahn's orders, with Kitana's childhood friend Jade joining her later. In a bid to save Earth, Raiden substitutes Kung Lao in place of Liu Kang during the tournament. Following his victories over Shang Tsung, the ruler of the Netherrealm Quan Chi, and the fire-breathing Kintaro, Kung Lao's neck is snapped by Shao Kahn when his back is turned, killing him, with Liu Kang retaliating and mortally wounding the Emperor in a fit of rage. Raiden's amulet continues to deteriorate, and he becomes increasingly concerned. Shao Kahn is healed by Quan Chi, at which point the two realms enter into an alliance. Quan Chi also revives and brainwashes Shao Kahn's long-dead wife, Sindel. In doing so, the ward that prevents Kahn's physical access to Earthrealm is nullified, and a full-scale invasion is now possible. Raiden saves Johnny Cage from certain death by slaying Centauri and Motaro. Joined by police officers Stryker and former Black Dragon member Cabal, the Earthrealm fighters attempt to stop Kahn's invasion. Kentaro severely burns Cabal, but he is revived by Kano, which greatly increases Cabal's speed. Kahn dramatically enhances Sindel's power by sacrificing Sung, taking the souls he had stolen for centuries and infusing them into Sindel. Raiden and Liu Kang travel to appeal to the Elder Gods, requesting they stop Shao Kahn's invasion. The Elder Gods refuse, saying that Kahn's invasion does not violate their laws, and that only attempting to merge Earthrealm into Outworld would be a violation. While Raiden and Liu Kang are away, Sindel leads an Outworld attack on the heroes. In the battle, many of the assembled warriors were killed by Sindel, and Kitana is brutally beaten. Before Sindel can kill her, Nightwolf intervenes and sacrifices himself in order to kill Sindel. Raiden and Liu Kang return soon after, and Kitana dies of her wounds after sharing her final words with Liu Kang, leaving Cage and Sonya Blade as the only survivors, but both are too injured to continue fighting. In an act of desperation, Raiden attempts to ally with Quan Chi, offering the souls of the deceased heroes as payment. Quan Chi declines and reveals that he already has possession of the heroes' souls and has turned them into undead revenants. Quan Chi's words make Raiden realize that he must win refers to Shao Kahn himself. Should Kahn conquer Earthrealm without victory in Mortal Kombat, the Elder Gods will punish him. Liu Kang, angered by the seemingly pointless deaths of their allies, blames Raiden and goes to attack Shao Kahn alone. Raiden tries to stop Liu Kang, but ends up accidentally killing him when Liu Kang's fire mixes with Raiden's lightning, burning Liu Kang alive. Overcome with guilt, Raiden surrenders to Shao Kahn, at which point the Elder Gods intervene, imbuing Raiden with their power, which he then uses to defeat and kill Shao Kahn for violating the Mortal Kombat Code. After Shao Kahn's death, Raiden vows to rebuild Earthrealm with Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. Quan Chi, now shown to be an agent of Shinnok, the exiled Elder God of Darkness, reveals that the destruction of Shao Kahn and the weakening of Earthrealm by the death of their fighters was part of their plan to conquer all of the realms for their own bidding. So there you have it, there's the story for Mortal Kombat 9. And overall I think on paper the story looks good. And I love how they follow up with the story in MKX and in MK11. I love how a lot of the characters remain Revenants and they don't go back to their form. Some of them do, but not all of them. I think this was a good setup for the following two games. That being said, the voice acting in this story is not good, in my opinion. And even when I played it when I was younger, I remember this was a time where games were getting these really good stories and the storytelling in games was increasingly exceeding. And for this game, I was really let down when I played it even back in 2011. I was like, this just seems really cheesy. The voice acting doesn't seem good. Sometimes it's borderline cringy. The jokes that they make in the game really fall flat.
Guess he turned another one. What's Raiden got that I haven't got?
Godlike power?
A personality that is not at all like sanding paper?
Jerks.
I feel like they really upped everything after this and made it more cinematic. But for this game, when I'm playing it, the story just does not hit well for me at all. I do enjoy that they diverted from the original storyline too. Like they didn't keep everything the same. They made changes. You know, we don't get Cyber Smoke, we get Cyber Sub-Zero. Stuff like that was great. But then there's other things of like, this is Mortal Kombat. People are supposed to die gruesome deaths. And we don't really get any of that in the story mode. I mean, the most gruesome thing that happens in the story mode was Jax losing his arms to Ermac. And when Sindel comes on like her onslaught and kills most of the warriors, I remember the first time I played and I was like, are they dead? Are they just incapacitated? Like, what happened? It's really unclear. She just kills a lot of the players with like the heel of her boot. And you could easily have just been like, oh, they're injured. And I wasn't even really sure that they were dead until like the next scene when you see that they're dead and it's like, oh shit, she actually killed everyone. This is Mortal Kombat. Show the gore. Make me not question if she killed someone or not. And why does it take until the third act till we see a bunch of people die? That being said, I like it a lot that NetherRealm Studios had the balls to kill off the majority of the cast and turn them all into bad guys. That was an awesome story decision that I think also really helped new characters in the future games to kind of develop their stories, because we already know a lot of the older characters' stories. So now we can add these new characters and start having their story arcs come about. And then there's just one more thing I need to mention. You're telling me that Stryker can defeat Kentaro, Mileena, and Ermac? Reptile I can maybe believe, because Reptile like always loses all the time. But come on. Stryker?
Never knew I had it in me.
Come on. Okay, so now my thoughts on the gameplay and the design. Overall, going from Mortal Kombat Armageddon, or going from MK vs. DC Universe to this game, it looks great. It looks awesome. It does kind of have that, Xbox 360, PS3 look when you go back to it after playing, MKX or MK11, but it still looks really good. I have no gripes with the design or the graphics at all. Now, the gameplay in the story mode can be summed up into one word, and that is frustrating. Some of the fights are just so goddamn frustrating, and you really have to look for patterns onto how to beat characters, and I don't think that's something that you should have to do in fighting games. Now, they fixed this mechanic in X and 11, but when you're playing against Shao Kahn, when you're playing against Quan Chi in any tag match, and a lot of the tag matches for that matter, you have to really just look to counter their moves, and it's really just kind of like figuring out the patterns of the characters, which is more of like a boss fight mentality. Not really how I want to go into like a fighting game fighting against someone. So I didn't like that, and I forgot that that's what you had to do. So I went in after playing MK11, going back to MK9 and not being able to play the way that I want, and just playing like the reserved wait till he does this to make your move type thing. It just felt kind of weird and off, and I completely forgot that's how this game was until I went back and played it. The cinematic fights look awful, and they look like an amateur movie that you get your friends to be the extras in the background and you have like an amateur fight. If you don't believe me, here it is.
Do you need help?
It just takes away from the story. I'm not saying I don't like the game, because I do like the game. I love the tower matches. I love the tag matches, which I feel like they should really bring back to future games. I don't know why they ever got rid of it. This was probably the best thing about this game, was the tag matches. But the storyline and the design is just like so underwhelming to me. I'm just glad that they fixed it in Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11. Overall, the fatalities were pretty solid. The crypt is back again, and it's good. It's not as interactive as again, X or 11, but it's still there and it still works. And I thought the DLC characters were good for the time, although Rain should have been in from the beginning. I mean, he is a core character in the game, but I digress. And I guess lastly is the roster. The roster is great. It's the core roster. It's what you remember from if you grew up with Mortal Kombat as a kid. It's all of the characters from the original trilogy. They're all there, minus Rain, DLC, whatever. So the roster is fantastic. So overall, those are my thoughts on Mortal Kombat 9. I think I enjoyed it a lot more when it came out before having to compare it to X and 11. I'm going to play through Mortal Kombat X next, and then following that I'll play through Mortal Kombat 11. One thing I did also notice is it's a little bit more tanky than X and 11. The moves aren't as smooth, the combos aren't as smooth, it's a little slower. It was a little hard for me to go back to this game, and it kind of tarnished it a little from what I had remembered, because I had remembered it being so great. But who knows, we'll see how it stacks up when I go back to back with them. So next up, I've got...
We thought the long nightmare was over, but it turns out that Shinnok had been manipulating events. Shao Kahn's invasion, his death. All part of Shinnok's plan to escape the Netherrealm and resume his war on the Elder Gods.